This is a video on how to install the ebeyond 2000 electronic ignition. Here's the company card, and anytime you call him, the guy has picked up the phone every single time. His name's Ed, and the phone number is 231-588-2520. The first thing the instruction says to do is to remove the dust cover, points, and condenser. This is a 6-volt system that I'm using it on, but his system is good on 6 or 12 volts and says that it'll run on as low as 5.2 volts. Okay, you have to get the wire off that goes over to the coil, and that lands on this stud. So now the base plate is off. When I'm working on things so I don't lose the parts, a lot of times I just put them back on. This is what the new assembly looks like. HD-121 is electronic pickup, and then you have a rotor, this black rotor that's going to go on the shaft that comes out of the bike, and as it comes by, that's what times it to give you a spark. The 2 white wires, I'm sure, are part of the alignment marks for timing. Okay, they're asking for you to feed the wires down through the hole where the wires used to be. And I believe it tells you in the instructions to use this hole here. So, I guess that's to give you some leadway to make sure the holes over here fit. Okay, I have to remove the original wire here. I'm going to loop the new wires through the ringlet on the old ones. That way I can get them to where they need to go. There was this clip in there that wouldn't allow me to pull them out. And now the wire should come right out. You can see where a little crooked, but this is the wire and it goes right over to the coil, and the new wires come right in behind it. So it's very easy to do. I'm not even really sure I needed to fish it through like it did, but I did, and here we are. It says to use the center hole here, and it says to use the screws that you took out of there. So the screws are long enough because they're poking through the bottom. And I'm going to put a little Loctite on both these screws. Little blue Loctite. There's a little stop right here that allows you to move this in and out in a straight line. Comes up flush because this one has a lock washer on it. I'm going to take the lock washer off and use some blue Loctite. So a lot of times when I'm using Loctite, I put it on with a screwdriver like this. Way I can control how much I put on with these small screws. So I just want a little bit on there. I don't need too much. I'm not going to lock it down, just going to snug it a little bit until I get it adjusted properly. Again, I just use a little bit of blue, not too much. Screws can be tricky when they have Loctite on them. Get them out. Snug it, but not lock it down. That way, when it comes time to adjust this, you can see you can move it in and out. The way the gap gets set when it's all installed is you use the gauge that comes with this. That's a separate little gauge there. And I believe that gauge is about 30 thousandths. I read in the instructions it's under 40 thousandths for the gap. Now I'm going to put the screws in for the plate for the cutout relay, making sure that I get the timer retard arm through the plate. The reason I'm going to the electronic ignition is because this bike needed points, new points, and when I bought the new points, complete junk. You can't find good points for these things anymore. I put them in, and the fiber rotor arm, even though it's greased, wears out really quick. And I'm constantly having to pull over and adjust the points on the side of the road. And I'm just tired of it. It's the first set of points I replaced. I restored this bike in 1999. I put it on the road. It took me about 2 years to restore it. And this is really the first work I've had to do to it. You see my hands are dirty. There's a good bit of oil. And all these old bikes leak a certain amount of oil. They're designed to leak oil, which a lot of people don't realize. And this one's no exception. But the rocker box covers are leaking a good bit of oil. So I decided to replace those. And like anything on these old bikes, it's not an easy job. It's not just straightforward. The newer bikes are a little easier to do rocker boxes on, although they require a lot of work too. So people don't understand how much maintenance these do need. For instance, when the primary chain wears, there's 5 or 6 adjustments you have to make when you adjust that primary chain, because it's all mechanical linkage. First you have to unbolt the transmission, and there's a screw that moves the transmission backwards. And in turn, when you move the transmission, you now have to adjust the rear chain, So transmission back is 1, rear chain back is 2. When you adjust the rear chain back, you have to adjust the mechanical linkage for the rear brake. That's a 3rd adjustment. The 4th adjustment is the clutch pedal rod. You have to adjust. Then you have to adjust the shifter linkage, because it's now changed. That's 5, and I believe there's one more adjustment, but I can't think of it off the top of my head, but at least 5 adjustments just to adjust the primary chain. And on these, it requires the primary chain adjusted more often, because it does not run in an oil bath. It has pressure that comes off the oil pump that feeds oil over to the primary chain and drips it on. And then in turn, that oil, after it drips onto the primary chain, drips out a hole in the back of the inner primary onto the main chain. So that's how the main chain gets oiled. That's why these are always putting oil on the ground, because that system always has oil coming out of it all the time. So this rotor, when looking down at it, spins clockwise. So when you pull that handle, you twist that handle on the left handlebar, and I'll show you that. When you twist this distributor back, that advances the timing. You're putting it earlier compared to where this is. So to adjust it, you have to make sure that it will, this retards it, and that's forward on the handle. And when you twist the handle backwards, that's advancing it. I'm just going to snug it for right now, because I got to check the timing before I do all this. So you can see by the screws there's 2 magnets on here. And each of those magnets fires the coil for the associated cylinder. And those magnets move past this pickup, and that's what times the unit. Now you can see in here that this is tapered. It's skinnier on the top and wider at the bottom. And the rotor is the same way, so you just fit it on there and then give it a push down, and that's what they tell you to do. Now just give it a good push down. Now it's all the way down, it's just about flush, and it can't move. Now I'm going to make sure the gap is correct. When you're putting this clip back down in, there's an indent right here, and that has to line up with this hole where this clip goes in. And these tabs have to face down. So basically there has to go in like this or like this to hold it down. And this clip is spring loaded. So right now I have the holes right where they need to be, or the clip. Now let's see if I can get it in. I got that in, and now I can't move, but it can still twist. Now I just need to adjust the gap on this. So now I'm just pushing it up. Now that paper's snug, that gapping tool. Now I'm just going to snug up the screws. And there. It's snug now. Just a slight drag on it. So that should set the gap correctly. The proper way to time the distributor is, there's a screw right here, and this screw tightens this band that goes around here. So you loosen that screw, and then you can turn the distributor independently of the shaft, and that moves this pickup around, and that allows you to set the timing. Now this is pretty much the same procedure that's in the manual for the Knuckle Head. I brought the motor up on the top dead center on the compression stroke, and you can see the timing mark right there. It's in the center of the hole, which is what the directions tell you to do. The other thing I want to show you is where the timing marks that need to line up are, which they're not even close at this point. So I have to bring that base plate around. I'll show you how I do that. You have to loosen this screw right here. Okay, so now you can see it's moving, and I have to bring it all the way around to line that up. Looks like that. Now I'm going to check the timing per the directions before I go any further. Okay, with the wires hooked up, I have the red wire on the positive side where the positive battery is. The only wire on the black side is the black wire on the negative side of the coil. Now I have my meter lead on the negative side of the coil. I have the positive meter lead, and I have the negative to the battery. I have my meter on voltage. Now I'm going to turn the ignition on. When the unit grounds out the circuit, the voltage will go low. And then when that allows the coil to charge, and then when that ground is removed, you get spark. And when it's removed, you'll see the 6 volts or 6.5 volts come back. I have a full video on how ignition systems work, and I'll include a link at the end of this video to that video. It's really good to watch. But anyway, I'll turn the ignition on, and you can see there is the 6.9 volts. Now, when I kick the motorcycle over, rotate the engine, you're going to see at different points that goes away. Right there, that means it's charging the coil. And when it comes back, that means you would have spark. And you should do it twice in one rotation. And there it is. So you can see that the ignition system's working. So that's how this system is installed. This took about an hour and a half to do in total. And this is what it's looking like right now, finished. And it was pretty easy to do. Some troubleshooting tips that they give you for this unit are to check your coil. The coil should be 1 to 1.2 ohms, and you can see mine's basically about 1.1 ohm. And that's going from the positive side of the coil to the negative side. The other thing they tell you on this unit, you should have resistor wire. I don't. These are solid core wire, and they say the spark is better with the resistor wire, so I'm going to get resistor wire for this. Your spark plug gap should be 28 thousandths of an inch, which is pretty much a standard for any points Harley, is to keep them about 28 thousandths, which is where I keep them. For hookup, the red wire from the new unit goes to the positive side of the coil, and the black wire goes to where the points used to connect to, which is here. And that's how I'm going to wire it up. Now, before you even do that, to double check, I'm going to power the bike on with one wire on the ground and one wire on the positive side of the coil, just to verify that that is the positive side of the coil. And now I turn it on, and you can see the 6.4 volts, and it's plus. So this is the positive side of the coil where I have the lead. Because if you reverse the wires to this new electronic unit, it will ruin it instantly. And it says that clearly in the instructions. So it's best just to get out some kind of meter and double check it. Now, if this were wrong, if I had them backwards, it would say minus 6.5 volts. Also, make sure that your meter leads are in the correct position. Red to the positive, black to the negative, because if you switch them around, you could get backwards. If you switch them around, it could trip you up. See, now it says negative 6.4 volts. So it's just important to have that correct. Now, I would love to show you a video of me starting the bike and how it runs, but I'm in the middle of the rocker box repair. So when I do eventually finish up the motorcycle, I will add a video showing it running and give my thoughts on if it's easier to start like they say it is, and if it runs better like they say it should. Pretty much it for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.